Sprawling across 9 South American countries, the Amazon rainforest is the largest on Earth. Every inch crawls with life. Here, 2.5 million species fight for their share of space, food, and water. But even the rainforest has a dry season. Fatal for some, a struggle for others. It forces prey face to face with predator. Pushes pregnant mothers on a desperate hunt for food. And drives fathers to extremes to keep their offspring afloat. In the dry season, less water means a bigger fight for survival. It's an ecosystem so powerful, it creates its own weather. Throughout the Amazon, millions of trees pump moisture into the air, forming rain clouds. They dump more than 118 inches of rain here every year. But for 6 months, from June to November, rain is sparser and more sporadic. During dry season, water levels in the Amazon River drop by as much as 23 feet. With fewer places to hide, prey and predator are forced into deadly proximity. Capybaras are relatives of the guinea pig and are the world's largest rodent. They're on the menu for almost every large predator in the jungle. Big cats hunt them on land, while harpy eagle preys on their infants from the air. With a wingspan of over 6 feet, they're one of the world's largest raptors. And at this time of year, capybara babies, like these 3-month-olds, are especially vulnerable. Capybaras breed all year round, but young born in the dry season will face the hardest time in their first few months. Only a third will make it through their first year. They live in small groups or harems, made up of as many as a dozen females led by a single dominant male. This young male hasn't had a good year so far. He's only managed to attract one mate. And they've had just this one precious baby. So Dad must be super vigilant. Capybaras are excellent swimmers. The river is normally their go-to for safety from most predators. But today, the water is no safer than the land. A hungry cayman has spotted an opportunity for a meal. This 82-million-year-old king of the waterways, older than the river itself, is the Amazon's top water predator. Closely related to crocodiles and alligators, cayman can reach over 16 feet in length and weigh nearly 900 pounds. Baby capybara would make a satisfying snack. But it won't be an easy catch. Dad is keeping a watchful eye on his only offspring. This hunting machine, on Earth since the time of the dinosaurs, has evolved to be patient. He'll wait for the perfect moment to strike. Although he breathes air, the cayman can stay just under the surface of the water for up to an hour at a time, dropping his heart rate to just 2 or 3 beats per minute to reduce his need for oxygen. All the time moving steadily and silently closer to his target. With their underdeveloped sweat glands, the capybara are prone to overheating. At some point, as the day gets hotter, the capybara will have to enter the river to cool down. That's when the cayman has a chance to strike. Four months into the dry season, water levels drop dramatically, shrinking down to around half wet season levels. The river itself turns into a deadly prison. On its fringes, as the water recedes, small pools begin to form, trapping fish. As the water in these pools heats up, oxygen levels decrease. The trapped fish slowly suffocate and die. The bloated fish won't go to waste. They're already in line of sight for one of the Amazon's top scavengers. Black vultures can spot the rotting carcasses from almost 1,000 feet up. And it's not long before a crowd of hungry opportunists gather. In Latin, the name vulture means terror. Easy to see why when they rip into a carcass. It's every vulture for himself. The squabbling is constant. It's not pretty, but these grim scavengers provide a valuable cleanup service. The vultures are able to digest the rotting fish because their stomachs contain specially adapted acid. Without vultures, deadly bacteria would spread into the food chain. Even with all this grisly bounty, there's still not quite enough to go around. A young female was edged out in the fish fight. So she starts looking around for other options. A collared plover immediately spots the threat. He knows black vultures don't just eat carrion. They're opportunistic feeders. Nothing is safe when they're on the prowl. The plover is guarding his open nest. He has just 2 eggs. The vulture is 50 times larger than the tiny plover. The little bird won't stand a chance if she comes after his eggs. She'll take them both in seconds. His partner's nowhere in sight, so it's down to Dad to save the day. As the vulture closes in on his position, he's got just one option: distraction. Risking his own life to save his eggs, the plover stays in the vulture's eye line, darting at high speed away from his nest. If this doesn't work, he's got no other plays to make. It's all or nothing. The baffled vulture decides against further investigation. Maybe the fish buffet is a better bet after all. For now, the plucky plover's eggs are safe. The vultures aren't the only creatures to take advantage of the dry season. Low water levels provide the perfect training ground for the young offspring of one of the Amazon's most endangered species. There are only about 1,000 giant river otters left in the wild. And this time of year is critical for the success of the species. The 2 young pups in this family are around 6 months old. If they've a chance of reaching adulthood, they must quickly master 2 key skills: swimming and fishing. As air breathers, perfecting the prolonged underwater diving needed for hunting is much safer when the river is low. It also concentrates their main prey, river fish like piranha and catfish, into smaller areas, making them easier to catch. Today's lesson is going well. Under the watchful eye of more experienced family members, the pups are fast learners. But they must maintain this level of focus. If they don't get their aquatic skills down soon, they'll be in real danger. When the wet season arrives, the river will become swollen, its waters more dangerous and faster moving. When that happens, they'll join their whole family on longer distance hunting trips, taking on baby caimans and even anacondas, the largest snake in the world. Gradually, they'll earn their local nickname, the river wolf or water jaguar. Giant river otters are pursuit predators who actively hunt down their prey. A thick, muscly tail and large clawed, webbed feet make them extremely agile. They can deploy a special muscle to make their eyes bulge, giving them better underwater vision. And their whiskers pick up vibrations from prey. Their fur is so dense, their skin never gets wet, even when swimming. This thick, velvety pelt was almost their downfall. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they were hunted to the brink of extinction. Almost 24,000 highly prized giant otter skins were sent to Europe and the USA during this time to be made into clothing. Their numbers plummeted. Against all odds, a few tiny populations managed to survive. This section of the Amazon River in Peru is home to one of them. Every new generation of pups, like this one, is critical for the species' survival. With the river so low and full of densely packed or dying fish, for the species that feed on them, the dry season is a time of plenty. But for animals that live on the fruits of the forest, the opposite is true. Hardly any trees bear fruit at this time of year. For many, this is a time of hunger. This woolly monkey, traveling with the rest of her troop, has an especially big appetite these days. She's heavily pregnant and will give birth any day now. She's been carrying her baby for almost 6 months already. She needs to stay strong and healthy. Woolly monkeys are among the largest primates in South America and have an appetite to match. Fruit makes up almost all of her diet. When available, she'll eat over 100 different types, but right now, it's in very short supply. Luckily, there is one type of tree she can absolutely rely on: the fig. It's one of the few rainforest trees that produces fruit all year round. A lifesaver for the female woolly monkey and her unborn offspring. Fig trees attract animals from miles around. These brown capuchin monkeys have followed the scent of the figs through the jungle. They can feed peacefully in the fig's large canopy. There's enough room to avoid scuffles. But when the woolly monkeys arrive, the capuchins, less than half the size of their woolly cousins, have to make way. As they eat and excrete, each woolly monkey can spread over 800 seeds a day through the forest, starting the next generation of fig trees. This is the payoff for the fig tree, which has to spend a lot of energy to produce fruit year-round. Every single fruit they produce is important. Even the ones that drop onto the floor play their part in the ecosystem. They're meticulously gathered up by one of the forest's most industrious inhabitants. Leafcutter ants. Despite the name, they're not all about leaves. Almost any plant material will do. Since they can lift up to 50 times their own body weight, the fallen fig is no problem. Each colony contains millions of individuals, one of the most complex animal societies on Earth. They forage every day, cutting up and collecting their finds for transport back to the nest. But it isn't for them to eat. It's food for a completely different organism. Fungus. Deep in their underground homes, these tiny farmers have spent 15 million years domesticating a specific type of this organism. The leaves feed the fungus, and the fungus feeds the colony. The dry season is vital to their plans. They must get their fungus farms working at peak efficiency. Soon, the colony's new queens will be born. Each one will fly away from the nest, carrying a piece of the fungus garden in its mouth to start a new colony. It's important that they cultivate enough food in advance, so the new queens will have what they need. With less rain to disrupt their foraging, the dry season means the forest is one big fungus-feeding machine. And the ants won't let up. Back in the river, neither will the Cayman. It still has its eye on a capybara meal. The new dad is feeling the pressure. Capybaras need more than 6.5 pounds of food a day, and this area is grazed out. The jungle is crawling with predators, so taking the river route seems like the best option. The Cayman would no doubt agree. With the patience of the ambush predator, it's been very slowly zeroing in, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The capybara baby is a perfect bite-sized snack for the Cayman. She, rather than mum or dad, will be its preferred target. They've put baby between them, the safest place. But soon she loses focus, straying closer and closer to the water's edge. If she stays here, she'll be an easy target. Dad decides to take the plunge, encouraging his daughter to follow. The adult female gets in behind him, but the baby begins to panic. She's staying on the bank, while her parents get further and further away. The caiman's patience might be about to pay off. His powerful tail can accelerate him to over 15 miles an hour in just a few strokes. He can close the distance between them in seconds. For the baby, it's now or never. She takes the plunge. The caiman's long wait has been in vain, this time. To add insult to injury, he's now become lunch himself for a host of green horseflies. Their powerful, serrated mouthparts easily saw apart the thick scales of the caiman. They feast on his blood. They only do this during the dry season. This is when they lay their eggs, so they need as much nutritious blood as they can get. The caiman can submerge, but when he comes back up, they'll be ready for him, waiting to gorge themselves again. It really isn't his day. But there is some good news for him. The sun is shining. Less rain in the dry season means days have more hours of sunlit warmth. So he'll have enough energy to find another meal. Caiman are cold-blooded or ectothermic, so they need to stay warm to stay mobile. The colder they get, the more their body functions slow down. They become sluggish and unable to hunt. There are over 400 species of reptile in the Amazon. Like all of them, the yellow-spotted river turtle needs to sunbathe to survive. They live in the water, but need a dry place to catch their rays. With water levels lower, there's less river to share, and safe sunbathing spots like this log are at a premium. And that means war. But there's one conscientious objector who decides that aggression isn't the answer. This situation calls for cunning. He bags a place on the sun lounger via the back door. For some creatures, the biggest challenge of dry season is finding somewhere wet enough. One of the smallest amphibians in the forest can get into real trouble at this time of year. Normally, this kind of frog can take good care of himself. He's a poison dart frog. He's less than 2 inches long and weighs under an ounce, but he's potentially one of the biggest killers in the jungle. He eats a diet of poisonous beetles, mites, and ants. Scientists think that they can metabolize and isolate the poisons in their prey, then accumulate them to use for their own defense, excreting them through their skin. The most poisonous of them has enough toxins to kill 10 men. But these toxic tough guys have a soft side. They're dedicated parents. This 3-striped poison dart frog is a brand new dad. The female has nothing to do with the eggs once she's laid them. Dad is literally shouldering all the responsibility. These frogs breed year-round, and this new dad has chosen one of the toughest times to raise a family. His babies are just at tadpole stage. He must find a suitable nursery. He needs a small, fresh pool of water nestled away in a hiding place he can protect that will stay around long enough for his precious cargo to safely develop. But in the dry season, finding the perfect spot is no easy task. And time is running out. If he can't find a location soon, his babies will dry out and die. Luckily, this dad is enterprising. He zeroes in on a leaf on the ground, just enough water to make a sheltered nursery pool. These tadpoles will take around 6 weeks to develop into fully formed frogs. And this dedicated dad will be on guard duty the whole time. If he's timed it right, the next generation of toxic tots should be fully grown and able to look after themselves by the time the dry season is over. Another Amazonian resident uses the dry season as valuable time to thoroughly prepare for her impending parenthood. With just a few weeks of it left, this female Watson is collecting twigs to prepare her nest. She'll build it in a tree that overhangs the water and lay 2 or 3 eggs. That's a risky business, especially when you're as clumsy as these birds are. Watsons are 64-million-year-old living links between modern birds and dinosaurs. At first glance, they don't have much going for them in the survival stakes. Crazy mohawk, blue faces, and ungainly movements. These birds aren't fierce or cunning like many other Amazon species. Although they have big wings, they're dreadful flyers, preferring to creep their way along branches. In spite of their apparent vulnerability, they've survived to the present day in healthy numbers, thanks to a unique survival strategy. They stink. In fact, they smell so bad, their informal name is stinkbird. It's all down to their diet. Unlike other birds, Huatzins' diet consists mainly of leaves. They're vegans, the cows of the avian world. The only birds with this strange diet. The tough, rubbery mangrove leaves are so hard to digest that a single leaf can take almost 2 days to pass through their guts. Thanks to this, they smell of rancid manure. Their stench is the secret to their survival. Virtually nothing wants to eat them. But stench doesn't give the stinkbird a completely free ride. This female faces very real threats. It's breeding season for the stinkbird, a very dangerous time. Right after she lays her eggs, predators are so tempted by her clutch that they are willing to ignore her noxious fumes for just long enough to sneak in for a snack. And when the dry season ends, this whole area will flood, potentially washing away the next generation. That's why this female has chosen an overhanging tree for her nest location. When the rains come, she and her 2 or 3 chicks will be high, dry, and safe from land-based predators in these protective branches. And she's picked such a secret spot, hidden in dense foliage, that even the most eagle-eyed predator will have trouble finding it. But if they do, the Huatzins have a plan. If an aerial attacker appears, the adult Huatzins will dash about to distract the predator from their precious chicks. The parents recruit last year's offspring, still hanging around to help protect the newest arrivals. Like most birds, these bizarre creatures feed their chicks on regurgitated food, starting them early on their life-saving diet. The dry season isn't over, but the countdown has begun. Showers now occur more often. Some creatures are taking the cue to start organizing for the coming change. These pharaoh ants are scouting for a new home. The few remaining dry weeks are a good time to prepare their million-strong family for a move. Their current colony is on the forest floor with subterranean chambers. If they stay there, they'll be flooded out and drowned when the rains start in earnest. Luckily, they have a built-in weather forecast system. Like all ants, they breathe through tiny holes in their exoskeleton, and scientists think this allows them to sense sudden drops in air pressure, which is a sure indication of rain. Even pre-warned, they still have to coordinate a mass evacuation and find a new home. But ants are experts at teamwork. Essential if you're only a 1/16th of an inch long. They communicate through touch and chemical markers called pheromones, laying trails for their colony mates to follow, so they can keep in contact as they move throughout the forest. They've found a new nesting site for the coming wet season. A hollow in the trunk of a long-dead tree. Hopefully high up enough to keep them dry when the waters start to rise. Ants aren't the only creatures on the move. This juvenile red side-necked river turtle is one of the rarest species in the rainforest, and he's in desperate need of some safety. He needs to find a refuge pool where he can pass the turbulent wet season unharmed. When the rains arrive, huge swathes of low-lying rainforest will be underwater. Even those species adapted to water have to move further inland or risk being washed away. The turtle needs to find his place of safety now, while the forest floor is still dry enough to journey overland. That's no mean feat. He's only 2.5 inches long, and his tiny little legs are better equipped for swimming than climbing. Compared to his minuscule body, the forest floor is mountainous terrain. And he's a target. His brightly colored head, a sign that he's still young, acts like a beacon for the Amazon's thousands of predators. His only protection is his perfectly camouflaged shell, which blends in with the leaf litter on the forest floor. He's so desperate to get to his shelter that he makes a costly mistake. Upended and partially submerged, the little turtle is helpless. A sitting duck for any predator that happens to come along. He's an air breather. If he stays underwater much longer, he'll drown. These turtles are so rare that even one premature death would be a blow to the species. Somehow, just in the nick of time, the little turtle manages to flip himself back the right way and take a much-needed breath of air. He's made it and learned a lesson. In the extremes of the Amazon, your life can turn upside down in a heartbeat. Finally, the dry season segues into the wet. Fresh, new leaves appear across the rainforest, which send up even more water into the atmosphere than usual. This causes the air to circulate, drawing in extra moisture from the Atlantic and Caribbean, forming massive storm clouds. Showers are longer and more frequent until eventually the rains arrive in earnest. As the rain pours down, specially shaped drip tips on the leaves channel water to the forest floor. Eventually, it funnels into the Amazon River, where it meets with meltwater from the Andes, filling up the river again, overrunning it, and covering almost 100,000 square miles of the Amazon floodplain. The trees in these low-lying forests, less than 330 feet above sea level, are designed to cope with the new water levels. They have specially adapted bark that won't rot when submerged, and huge anchoring buttress roots to ensure they aren't washed away. These swirling floodwaters are the key to the continuing survival of the rainforest. The brown water is full of nourishing silt collected from the fertile forest soil. Eventually, this silt will be redeposited on the ground, giving the next generation of plant life what it needs to flourish. But for the next few months, animals in the Amazon rainforest will have to adapt yet again to survive in this new watery world.